Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Football Universe. This is Aaron St. Denis at FFMadScientist, and that is Jesse Moeller at JMoeller05. Off to a solid start. Tried something new there, and it didn't work out because I got to the end of my intro, and I was like, I already said Fantasy Football Universe. Fuck, I got my intro backwards. Not a solid start. Let me tell you that.
Such is life, right? We always find ways to make it interesting.
We're here with our 900th receiver of the board. I think we're only 40 in, and we've had one goddamn running back. So this one is the 2024 rookie sneak peek for Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. If you want the full write-up, this one was done by you, Jesse. Yes?
Yep.
Over at fantasyfootballuniverse.com. New one dropping daily, sometimes twice daily. We have a offensive player 7 days a week. IDP player drops Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2 p.m. So we mix in. I think we go through 100 offensive players and 50 IDP guys. Little mix of both. And we have a new video dropping every day. So come back to check that out. Let's get into this one. Hailing from Chandler, Arizona, Pearsall attended Arizona State after graduating from Corona del Sol High School. He received a 3-star rating. In his first 2 years at Arizona State, he was not able to make a significant impact. He played 17 games, caught 13 receptions, and combined for 214 yards and 1 touchdown. During his junior year, he emerged as a standout player, playing in all 13 games. He led Arizona State in both receptions and yards, finishing with 48 catches and 580 yards, 4 touchdowns. Additionally, he demonstrated his versatility on offense by carrying the ball 6 times for 44 yards and a TD. In 2022, Pearsall decided to showcase his talents in the SEC by joining Florida and playing alongside Anthony Richardson for the final year of his collegiate career. He exhibited his deep threat ability by finishing 4th in college football with an average of 20 yards per reception, while leading Florida in both receiving yards and touchdowns. In total, he caught 33 passes for 661 yards and 5 touchdowns. It was a sign of things to come. Saved his best performance for 2023, setting career highs in receptions, yards, and touchdowns with 65 catches, 965 yards, and 4 TDs. And in December, he declared for the 2024 NFL Draft, and as we're recording, is currently showcasing his talents at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. You wrote this one up. What stood out to you?
He's just a good overall player. Like we talked about with our breakdown a little bit ago, Jonathan Brooks. It's very similar. He does a lot of things well. I know he projects as a slot wide receiver, but he can play inside and out. He can line up everywhere. And you'll see why I mocked him to the Cowboys later is because he can do a lot of everything. What really stands out to me is his route running. Like he's fluid, he's smooth, and he beats guys consistently. And you could watch the Senior Bowl tape, particularly on that corner route he read. He absolutely cooked the defender. It's because he's smooth in and out and he breaks and it's sharp breaks. And that works really well at the NFL level. He's going to get open, and he's going to get open a lot. I know he's not a name everyone's high on, but for me, breaking down the players, like I was surprisingly I liked a lot of what he did. So I think he's going to be a good NFL player.
What scares me is that he's significantly shorter than guys like Johnny Wilson, and he's also a fair bit slower than Johnny Wilson. Like he's projected for a 4.52, which isn't slow. Like there's receivers in the NFL who've been very good who ran a 4.7, but for a guy of his height and build, you would expect him to be faster than that, but we'll get into that. 6'1", 52nd percentile, 193 pounds, 19th percentile. He is an older player, 23.3 years old, and is a senior. Played five full years because of the red shirt and the COVID year. That is a lot of football.
There's a lot of those guys in this class.
It's not great. I don't love it. Like his true breakout kind of happened as a senior, and I always say I hate those late breakouts. I guess I don't know. I think for me, these two right here, 580 and 661, that's not really a breakout to me for a receiver. That's tight end breakout, but I need to see closer. I need to see at least, I think, 750, 800 to consider it a wide receiver breakout. So I'm going to classify that as a late breakout age. I don't know what player profiler would rate it as, but I assume it's a later breakout.
Yeah, it's also the offenses he played in. He actually was with Jaden Daniels at Arizona State, so they were both in college a long time. And then he goes to Anthony Richardson. Those offenses were not very pass heavy and not very good. So he led the team in receiving yards both those years. But like it's a small number just because the offense was not that great. So like you kind of have to take that in consideration with him. So you're not going to see these 1,213-yard seasons just because the pass offense wasn't great.
This makes sense, though, in his last year with Richardson, because Richardson was either chuck it 70 yards or run the ball. That makes sense. But all right, scouting report. He was a versatile player who can play in the slot or out wide, fluid route runner who consistently creates separation. He's a playmaker with the ball in his hands and can be deployed in the run game as well. The ability to make circus catches will drop your jaw. When defenders line up in off coverage, he can make them look foolish, and he has arrogant hands that will come away with the ball if it's in his catch radius. That's the best way I've ever heard that described. Please elaborate. What does that mean?
So arrogant hands basically are saying like that ball is mine. I'm going to get that ball.
Is
You're
that
not
like
getting the
spirit
ball.
fingers?
Yeah, basically it's just the football way of saying spirit fingers. Like you see this with his jaw dropping catches. Like the one catch earlier in the year, he went behind his back, caught it like up over his head and came down with it one-handed. It's like stuff like he does stuff like that consistently. So he might not be the best athlete in the world, but he knows how to use his ability and like he knows his body very well. It's a body control thing where he makes those catches where you're like, this guy should not be able to make those catches. And it's similar with his route running. Like those things stand out to me. So like this is why I think he's gonna be a very good NFL player. Fantasy wise, it's a little bit different because he doesn't have those elite traits where he's not going to be super fast and all of these things in the NFL. But like for an overall NFL like wide receiver, I think he's going to be a good NFL wide receiver.
I've read and I've written a lot of these, and I don't think I've ever seen arrogant hands before. Did
It's
you
one
like
of my
make a
favorite
bet
things.
I had when I started at a site a couple years ago? I had a coworker bet me $20 that I couldn't get dumpster fire into a professional article and have it published. And sure enough, I did. So is this like someone bet you couldn't get arrogant hands onto the paper? Is that what that is?
No, this is like for guys who play football, like this thing comes up and like people use this as a phrase they like to say for guys that have really good hands at catching the ball. Like basically they will attack the ball and they're catching it no matter what. They call it arrogant hands. So this is kind of one of my favorite little like basically sayings people use about guys with good hands.
I like it. I've never heard it, but I like it. All right, weaknesses. He has difficulty getting free when pressed at the line of scrimmage. He lacks top-end speed, which will limit his ceiling at the next level. He will let his routes get disrupted, and timing with the quarterback will be thrown off, and he needs to get stronger to improve as a run blocker to see the field at the NFL level consistently. His arrogant hands do not help him in run blocking. What was your biggest negative for him?
Not so much. It's more basically in middle route. Sometimes he gets a little long coming out of his breaks and it disrupts the timing, or he gets knocked off by a linebacker. Sometimes they'll bump him a little bit and it kind of screws up the route a little bit. So if he can clean that stuff up a little bit, it's going to raise his floor at the NFL level. But those are two of the things that you see. It's the strength. He just needs to get stronger so he can break the press a little bit because that's an issue for him from time to time. And basically staying on his routes. If he can do that, that cleans up a lot of the issues he has.
For me, it was speed. I would have hoped he would have been a little faster, and he just wasn't. All right, pre-draft analysis. You have him going in the third round to the Dallas Cowboys at pick 87. I don't hate it. I think I have him. I also have him going. He's in the cluster there on the 3-4 turn, where I don't know. There's like 8 of them in that range. Who was the last one we just did? He was in the same range.
Johnny Wilson?
No, it was after Johnny Wilson.
Oh, Jonathan Brooks?
No. Oh, maybe
it
was.
Who it is.
I think it was a wide receiver. What?
I'm trying to think. They're like, I know we're going to talk about Roman Wilson here in a little bit too. But it might be him.
We literally recorded 10 minutes before this show, and I forget what the receiver we were talking about was. Anyways, he's in a group of players at the 3-4 turn. I could see him going to Atlanta. I don't mind Dallas. There's a whole bunch of spots. I don't think he's profiling here as a wide receiver 1 or even a 2 maybe. So there's not really a bad landing spot for him. I would like to see Atlanta. I don't know if I really want Desmond Ridder. So your Dallas pick makes a lot more sense. What was the appeal here besides the fact that it's Dak Prescott and not Desmond Ridder?
Yeah, it's basically I want him to go to a room where they need another like a quality wide receiver. So like Brandon Cooks was a disappointment. And they didn't have much besides CeeDee Lamb in that offense. So you're adding him, and this could apply to like Cleveland. This could apply to Miami. Basically, someone who could play in the slot because he's more than likely going to be a slot wide receiver at the NFL level. but he can play both. So I like his versatility where it gives him more shot to play on the field. So if he goes to Miami, same type of thing. He can dominate in the middle. He gives them someone in the underneath. Like that's where he's going to make his bread, as they say. So any offense like that needs a guy who can come in, it gives them NFL production right away. Like I like it because he's an older wide receiver. He's more pro ready than some of the other guys coming in. So it's
Brendan Rice.
It was. Oh yeah, that's right, Brendan Rice. Yeah, like I would much rather have him on an NFL team than Brendan Rice. Like I trust him to be a good player more than Brendan Rice. Like that, he seems like the ceiling shot. If you want someone who's actually going to give you production, I much project Pearsall. Like I prefer that much more.
See, I was thinking the exact opposite. I think I liked Rice more, but I don't particularly love either of them. For me, this is going to be one where this group of receivers at the end of the third, like the 3-4 turn, it's going to be all about landing spot for me. Yep. You know, whoever gets buried on a depth chart may never see an NFL field. Someone's going to go to Carolina, and they may be a starter from day one. So the NFL draft, man, it's all about where you land. Just look at Zach Wilson.
Right, exactly.
Whereas all it takes is, I was going to say all it takes is to land in the last pick to San Francisco and you're a Hall of Famer, but it didn't work out for Trey Lance at the number 2 pick. So I guess it's not about landing spot. Sometimes it's landing spot with draft capital. And I guess
and the talent of the player.
Higher draft capital is always important, but I guess for quarterbacks, sometimes it's easier to come in with no expectations. But my wide receiver, I want the higher draft capital, the better, because it's the only way you get onto the field in wide receiver.
It raises your floor as an NFL player because it gives you more chances, right? Like they'll want to see that. So like guys who get first round, pedigree, they obviously give as much chances as possible to prove it. But like for me, he's a tier 3 wide receiver in this class. He's basically in that wide receiver 8 to wide receiver about 14 range. There's a ton of those guys that I like. He's more towards the earlier end than the back end of that tier for me. So based on what I saw in the Senior Bowl and everything I like as a player, like I think he's pushing higher to the top 10 than he is on the lower end of it personally.
All right. Well, that concludes the 2024 rookie sneak peek for Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. Like I said, for the full write-up, this one done by Jesse, head over to fantasyfootballuniverse.com or check back tomorrow on YouTube for our latest video in this series. Like I said, we also do IDP as well on Monday, Wednesday, Friday over on the website. For Aaron and Jesse, thank you all for tuning into the Fantasy Football Universe. Take care and have a great night.